I'm going to talk about a couple of different things with CSS, which is more boring than the previous stuff, but but you're probably going to use it more. Oh, mortality. Yeah.
You only use mortality once.
Which side of the gun you are?
Right. So CSS Grid is a new thing that was introduced last year in CSS and has been adopted very quickly by all the major browsers. It's a way of creating two-dimensional layouts in CSS. It's sort of like tables from 15 years ago, but now it's CSS. And it replaces a whole bunch of stuff that that were essentially just hacks for laying out things the way we wanted to lay them out with CSS, like inline blocks and floats. Floats. After you start using CSS Grid, you never need to float anything ever again. Yeah, so Flexbox is another thing that's also pretty new from a couple of years ago, and it's really good. I suggest you keep using it. But Flexbox is made for one dimension. It's made for laying things out either like horizontally or vertically. So that looks like this. So this is an example of a Flexbox layout. There's a whole bunch of stuff with different sizes, but they're laid out like this. Or you can do that vertically. But if as soon as you want to play with two dimensions at the same time, Flexbox is not the thing that you're looking for anymore, and you probably in the past just went back to using floats. So yeah, grids work like a grid, you know. So here is an example of a layout that's now possible with CSS. Was not possible with, well, you could do this with floats before if you wanted to use a day on it and hate yourself. So the thing that you're kind of setting up behind this looks like that. It's a grid. You describe that grid in CSS, and then you describe for each of the elements where in the grid you want it to be, all in CSS. Oh yay, demo time. Let's see how this goes. I'll mention that I'm by no means an expert on this. I'm using this presentation talk thing as an excuse to learn CSS grids. So if I screw up, that's why. All right, so yep. So the first thing we have like a parent element here, and that parent element has two children. And at the moment they're just sitting there doing nothing. So I can say display grid, and yeah, I can say I want it to have 4 columns. Yep, that's the one. Now the way that I say that I want 4 columns is by giving units. So I could say if I wanted 4 columns of 80 pixels each, I could say 80 pix, 80 pix, 80 pix, 80 pix, like that. But I'm not going to, because it provides us with a even more convenient unit, which kind of flexes with the layout that you have, which is a fraction. So I can say 1FR, 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 1FR. That's like 4 equal columns. If I wanted to have a column that was double the sizes of the other columns, you could do it like that, and it just automatically lays it out for you. Another thing you could do, like if you wanted to have absolute column widths and then a column that stretches, which was something that is not super trivial to do in CSS before. Now you can do that, so you'd have 2 columns of 80 pix, and then a column that scales to fit the layout, and then another column of 80 pix. But for now, I'm just gonna make it equal. Yay! Oh, also I want some padding between those. That's cool. So here we go. Woo! It's a grid. And you can see that if I add more children, they just automatically lay themselves out like this, and it works. Yay. Right. So now we want to say that we want to put some stuff in that grid and we want it to take up different amounts of space in the grid. So here's our grid that we just made. And the way that we refer to different areas of the grid is by referring to the individual lines along the grid. Not the actual columns or rows, but the lines along the grid. So
Just like Wolfenstein.
so for example, if I wanted to declare these two boxes here, I'd say it goes from 1 to 3 in the columns, 1 to 3 in the rows, and the same with that one down the bottom on the right there, 4 to 5 and 2 to 4.
Actually started 1.
Yeah, it's 1 based.
Wow.
I don't know. It's CSS. They have to do something bad in order to do something good. Let's. I'll show you how that kind of works. I'll just do some inline CSS here. Yes, one at a time. So I say grid area, and then it's is it row or column first? I guess I'll find out. So you say the start and then the starting row, and I think the starting row and then column, and then finishing row and then column. So I'll go 1 by 1 by 3 by 3, and that should automatically span. Woohoo! So let's find out. All right, it was column second. No. It was something second. Yes, row, column. Yeah. My brain's working. And you'll see that. Even though that's the first child element here, I laid it out in the second position in the grid, and it just automatically laid the other stuff out around it because I hadn't specified areas for them. Also, stuff that you couldn't do in CSS before. This is immediately useful for responsive layouts, where before you needed. I know I've done a lot of crappy JavaScript relayouting after breakpoints because there's elements that move around in different parts of the layout, that you need them in different parts of the layout in different screen sizes. And with Grid, you can actually just do it in the CSS. You can just completely take that part of the JavaScript out of it. But it gets better than that for the areas because, well, let's first of all, you don't need to use that 1, 2, 3, 3. That's completely unreadable. If you're going to have all of your classes and stuff laid out like that, and you just have all these numbers lying around everywhere, that's just going to be difficult to figure out what's going on. So I can name stuff. And now instead of using 2 and 3, I can use and it works using names. But it gets better again because you can just name entire areas of the grid. So you do this thing called template areas, and then you name every single cell as an area. So like do tet. Have to do every cell. And then I can say, instead of all of these numbers and nonsense, I can say, ta-da! That's readable CSS. Finally. Also, these elements don't have to take up. I'm not sure if I can remember the syntax. Yeah, these elements don't have to take up entire grid cells. You can justify them. Nope, that's flexbox. There's some property where you can justify within the cell which you can justify vertically as well.
No.
Vertical alignment.
Wow.
It really is 2018.
Can we use this or only our kids? I mean,
I'm getting there.
browsers?
I'm getting there.
Okay.
I think that's actually the next slide.
Awesome.
Yeah. You can use it.
Whoa.
You can use it as long as you're not supporting. Yeah. So Internet Explorer 11 and 10 does support it, but it supports a different spec.
Are there polyfills for...
Getting there as well.
Okay.
You can use Internet Explorer 11, but you have to basically do you have to do your own code for Internet Explorer 11. It doesn't support that naming stuff that I just showed you, but it does support Grid. The meaningful browsers that don't support it are Opera Mini. So yeah, if you're making a website that's used in India, then you'll have a problem. Or Africa, I think, is another place that uses a lot of Opera Mini. But if you're making and especially if you're making a website that already uses a lot of other HTML5 or CSS, like modern web development stuff, then you can use it. You can definitely use it. There's no polyfill because a lot of this stuff CSS couldn't do before, and a lot of the places where you'll be using polyfills, it's for computers that are like old, and you don't want to be doing expensive JavaScript layout calculations on those old computers. So if that's your use case, I would probably recommend not using grids at all. That's it. That's CSS grids. Any questions? Sweet. I have another one.
Yeah, one question. What happens when the number of charges you have extends beyond the number of grid areas that is available?
Yeah. It just keeps laying out after the. Let's see. Whoa! What happened there? Okay. It's kind of unpredictable, but it just keeps laying them out. Like it follows the column and row rules you wrote. If you screw up the areas, it dies completely. You need to get the area names right. That's just gonna. Yeah.
Can you like disable overflow, so write overflow hidden or something like that, and so it wouldn't grow the grid, it would just throw away the elements that went outside of the grid?
I'm actually not sure.
Okay.
So what happens if you take the last child you have now and you specify potet?
That's a good question. Let's find out. Oh no, it'll work. It'll go into potet. Yeah, of course it will. Yeah. Sweet. Yeah.
One question. Are there any good practices for fallback? Because you want to use that, but then some loony on their old iPhone never wants to check it out.
You mean on the old
good
Android?
practices for fallback?
Yeah. Lock yourself in a dark room and cry.
Yeah, okay. I can do that.
Standard CSS development.
There's no. It's kind of putting something in CSS that was really missing from CSS, which is why people were using hacks to do this stuff. So, I mean, some of the stuff you couldn't do it before, and a lot of it.
That's fine, but you kind of need some way of displaying at least some info.
Yeah, I think if you need to support those people, you can't use grids. It's simple as that, unfortunately.
Just wait a few years.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Let's move on.